Hello friends, how are you? Welcome to the first video in about a week because I've been pretty lazy about YouTube. But that's because I've been doubling down on the stream. I've been streaming 12 hours a day or so every day for the last week, doing various different things. I have a Magic Find party that I've put together with a few friends of mine that has been incredibly successful. More wildly successful in terms of making currency than anything I have ever done in Path of Exile, but that's not what we're talking about today. And I probably shouldn't have led with that, because today we're talking about the build I've been playing in solo play when I haven't been with parties. It is a Spark Lightpoacher build. Lightpoacher being one of the new helmets which they've added to the game with Abyss, and that is absolutely busted. It's just broken. It's amazing. This is not really going to be a build guide, by the way, in case you can't tell. First off, I have a webcam, and second, I'm going off the cuff, don't have a script, and it's after the end of a 12-hour stream, so it might be a little rambly. I apologize for that. I decided to put the build together when I got this Lightpoacher enchanted with 3 additional spark projectiles at the end of a lab run, and on thinking about it, I realized how good that could possibly be. Spark and Lightpoacher both will scale off of projectile damage. They'll both scale off of spell damage. They'll both scale off of crit. And if you convert Lightpoacher's damage from physical to lightning, they'll both scale off of elemental damage and lightning damage. And you can almost achieve 100% conversion. With physical to lightning, that's 50%, and with the new boots Stormcharger, that's 80% total phys to lightning conversion, as well as, including impulses, 60% increased effective shock. It's a lot of damage. This build has turned out way, way, way better than I thought. And before I go into too much depth on any of these items, I'm going to simply run one of my favorite new maps from the expansion, a Defiled Cathedral, and we're going to skip the boss. This build really just isn't worth bossing with. It is capable of some boss fights, especially ones with extra minions involved, or just multiple bosses in general, but it's not particularly excellent at them, and what it is very good at is clearing maps really fast. And this is what it looks like. Maybe Defiled Cathedral wasn't the best map to choose as an example. We can do another one if need be, though. As you can see, the reach on both the Spark projectiles and the Lightpoacher projectiles, which are those green orbs flying out of me every once in a while, or fairly frequently, honestly, is pretty absurd, and it leads to certain linear maps that are relatively low tier, having clear times in the sub 1 minute category. I'm able to do something like a shaped beach in 40 seconds or so. And we can run one of those as well, since obviously it won't take too long. I just wanted to show the build handling a red map, since it does have more than enough damage to do so. Abysses were a bit problematic at first, but now that I've gotten my Uber Lab and I've scaled a little bit more up in terms of levels, they're not really an issue anymore. But Abyss rares were a problem. For a little bit. Basically, like, once I hit maps around level 70 or so. But this build is so incredibly quick that after I hit maps, in 4 hours, I went from level 70, I think is what I hit maps on, just dead on 70, up to level 85 in the space of, well, 4 hours, as I said. And yeah, it was kind of ridiculous. Fastest I've leveled a character in a very long time. And you can get that speed right out the gate. My Ice Shot build is probably the only other build I've made that's comparable to this in clear speed. But the Ice Shot build needs a lot more sort of working together in order to do that, whereas this build, like, this is still on a 5-link with gear that in total probably cost me 120 chaos or less. So it's rather cheap and very, very effective if you don't mind not killing bosses, which, well, GGG still hasn't fixed the boss skipping meta. There's very little reason to do them still, so... Oh! I didn't turn on D&D, I probably should have. I will message Ann afterwards. Special guest star in the video, Ann. And there we go, I think we're just about done with the map. We probably missed a little side passage or something somewhere, because I'm quite tired and I'm not clearing correctly, but... still a good demonstration. Let's do a shaped beach just because I want to show something linear as well. And this is the sort of tier map that you might farm with this build. Where's beach? Is it 6? Is it 8? No. What tier is Shaped Beach? I guess I don't have any at the moment. We'll have to do something else that's somewhat linear. We'll do a Shaped Arid like. Thought I had a few put together. Oh, Ellie Reflect. That is certainly not on today's agenda. Reroll. Temp chains, please. No regen, please? Map? Work with me? There we go. I guess I could do temp chains with the warding flask up. It'll be up pretty much constantly. Alright, well. This is a slightly more open map, and while we clear it, I can talk a little bit more about the build. The clear speed is really solid because it comes from multiple sources. Spark alone would have decent clear for sure, but Lightpoacher is providing a lot of extra utility and the occasional Vol Spark, which we're not devoting any jewel sockets to the tree on, by the way. You don't use the Chill of Corruption or Sacrificial Harvest, it's simply not worth it. Better to go with Abyssal Jewels. So Vol Spark really is just supplementary damage. This is not a Vol Spark build, this is a Spark build, or a Lightpoacher build. Both of those are significant enough to be worthy of naming the build after them. And then the final, like, sort of rung of our clear speed is coming from Impulse's Broken Heart, which is popping whole packs as soon as, like, 1 or 2 mobs in that pack die. So we've got, like, 4 methods by which we're pushing our clear speed to the max, and it's why it just gets this super insane. Because where Spark might miss a mob, Lightpoacher will hit it, or maybe Vol Spark if that's up, or maybe it'll just die to the fact that the other mobs around it are dying. Abysses are so slow when you're running a build like this, they just feel lackluster. There we go. Breaches, on the other hand, those are fun. One of the bottlenecks for the build when I first got into maps was the shield charge speed, because it had like almost this level of clear, like, as I said, right out of the gate. So just the faster you can go, the faster you'll clear the maps. Your damage really isn't a problem if you set the build up correctly. So it's just about how quickly you can move. So Blood Rage was a huge help to that. Not only the Frenzy Charge gem, but the attack speed that it gives. I have a pair of Insanity Gloves, which I did craft myself. Not really factoring those into the cost. And without those, you'd probably want to maybe spec into a little bit more attack speed on the tree, wherever you can find that. Alright, all done? I think we're just about done with that. More than 50 still. We miss an area? A significant chunk? Feel like we pretty much covered everything. Maybe over here. Ah! That's not more than 50 though. Whoa, whoa! Wow! What are your mods? Well, whatever they were, it's gone now. Anyways. Defensively, the build does have some issues as well, but it usually just deals with that by murdering everything on the screen instantly. However, let's go over the build a little bit more in depth and the key parts of it. You are going to want some way of solving the mana problem. Let's start with that. This Shaper Touched Ring was my solution for that. Because I'm not doing bosses, I didn't go the Warlord's Mark route, which you can do. You can get a Shaper Touched Ring with Warlord's Mark on hit. A lot more expensive. This does the same thing. I have Life Leech already from Doriani's, and some from Aziri's Promise, and Life Recovery from Lightpoacher, so I'm really not lacking for recovery there, but I was lacking for mana recovery, so this +3 mana gain for each enemy hit by your spells mod, even on a ring that's like as mediocre as this, with 36 life and a miss strength roll, and a little bit of resistance, is honestly it's not that bad, it's just low on life, is just about perfect. You're going to want one of these in the build. The other ring can just be like a basic crit ring. You need an Esh's Mirror. This adds a ridiculous amount of damage because you kill so fast. 1 to 10 flat lightning, skyrockets your damage upwards, and it's just generic. It's not 2 spells or 2 attacks. That's to everything. I have shield, after like killing a breach, I've shield charged into a pack, and the shield charge kills the pack because there's so much flat lightning added at that point. You know, it's like literally hundreds or thousands potentially. That also scales Lightpoacher amazingly. Lightpoacher is, of course, what the build is built around. For those of you who've not used this item, level 20 Spirit Burst was that explosion of green projectiles firing out in a nova around me. That does such good base damage that with 3 support gems, one of which is a less damage multi, it's still able to one-shot packs. If we look at it on my bar, its average hit is 16,500 without any buffs. And this build stacks buffs. It's got Frenzy Charges, it's got Flasks, it's got Esh's Mirror rolling, it's got Impulses. So that gets up to around 40,000, 50,000 damage on an average hit from one of those projectiles, and it'll fire them super fast because it fires just when you use a skill while you have a charge and you get charges on kill. Lightpoacher is gross. Just use it in all your builds. Like, it's amazing. unless your build needs a specific helmet, you should probably use Lightpoacher. It's very much worth the loss of life. And you get another Abyssal Jewel socket, which is great. For the belt, Darkness Enthroned, I haven't gone over this in another video earlier, I meant to, but Ziggy actually covered it. This is just an amazing belt. You know, it's build your own belt. I don't really need resists. I need a little bit of cold res. Other than that, I've just gone for life, crit multi, and some cast speed. You can do anything you want with this belt because you just throw whatever jewels in, and then you get 50% increased effect. It's like a third jewel. You can get 90, 100 life pretty easily. Pardon me. And damage mods you can't get on other belts. Storm Charger, as I said, is used mainly for the 30% of physical damage converted to lightning. It's also got a bit of movement speed, which is great. I managed to get one with a perfect lightning resistance roll. The lightning res roll actually goes from 1 to 50, so that's pretty important. If you're going to put this build together, make sure you've got a good lightning res roll. And then the increased effective shock is really nice. So the way that increased effective shock works is not super obvious on first glance. Basically, shock can only ever cause enemies to take 40% increased damage. You can't push it past that. But when a shock hits an enemy, the amount of increased damage they take is based on the amount of damage that shock did. So like a shock could theoretically only cause them to take 10% increased, not 40. And what increased effective shock does is that lower level shock, it buffs that. So if you would shock an enemy and have them have a capped shock, increased effective shock is doing nothing for you. And most white mobs, most trash enemies, my increased effective shock is doing nothing. But against rare mobs, rogue exiles, bosses, if I do them, the increased effective shock is super, super valuable in bridging that gap between just being like a trash clearer extraordinaire to being able to do everything in the map, and abyss mobs and all that sort of thing. Because then suddenly your shocks are like almost full effectiveness even against a tanky abyss rare, because you've got 20% increased here and you've got 40% increased here if you've bought an Impulsa as well. And that brings me to my next point. When you're buying an Impulsas, you should prioritize increased effective shock. This build has plenty of damage. You don't need increased damage if you shocked an enemy recently. It's nice. If you can get one with a really high roll on that, do it. But the life roll, the increased effective shock roll, and the explosion roll are the most important. This one doesn't have a very good explosion roll. I have another one here. This is an example of what you should be looking for. Good life, perfect effective shock, perfect explosion. This is the one I'm trying to 6-link, and hey, maybe YouTube's lucky. No. Anyways, that's a sort of short overview of the build. There's going to be a few more changes coming to it, so I haven't got a build guide yet. But I'm just so damned excited by this build. I've played it for 3 days, and honestly, it seems like what I'm going to play for the rest of the league. I really wanted to share this with you guys. I hope you enjoyed the video, despite its rambling style. And I hope you join me on the stream as I keep leveling this through the 90s and re-gearing it, hopefully getting that 6-link. And yeah, join me for that. Join me for the journey. Thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I will see you in the next one, and hopefully I'll see you on the stream.